Organizations are faced with an incredible difficult task of trying to protect their expanding digital estate from increasing cyber threats. Now, the move to the cloud and a more mobile workforce, especially now during COVID, has pushed the border of your estate beyond the boundary of your physical network, beyond the boundary of your firewalls. Now, your data and your users and your systems are located everywhere around the world. So, the security operations purpose of protecting organizations' information and assets is becoming increasingly difficult as well. Now, some of those reasons are shown here on the screen. One of which is that attack techniques, frequency, and complexity are evolving extremely fast. A typical attack can span different parts and cross various resource types. It might start from an email address through a phishing link, proceed to an endpoint like your laptop or your workstation, spread to your cloud servers if you're using Office 365, for example, or to a database. It could involve multiple users and so on. So it's becoming extremely complex and evolves so fast. Another challenge worth noting is that security teams are under strain from this expanding range of defensive technologies and not knowing what security tools they need, especially once they're in a hybrid scenario with the cloud, having an on-prem environment and a cloud environment as well. Now, having all these disconnected products give you alerts, some could be meaningful, some could be meaningless. This can cause something called alert fatigue, where we see too many alerts from all these disconnected products. Now, you need a way to reduce that noise, to prioritize those alerts to make sure that the ones you're actioning are at the high severity alerts first, and which enables you for investigation and hunting across your entire data set. Another challenge is that breach investigations are becoming a little complex and time consuming as well. When a breach occurs, every second counts, especially when security personnel are handling this threat, and this threat might jeopardize your organization. So the clock is ticking fast, but investigation requires highly skilled security analysts and can often take days or weeks. Another challenge is that the shortage of these security talent makes this problem even worse. The need for skilled security professionals has greatly increased, and supply cannot meet current or future demand. So these are just some of the challenges that organizations face today when dealing with security. Let's give you a quick overview about Azure Sentinel and what it's about. So what is Azure Sentinel? Azure Sentinel is a scalable, cloud-native SIEM and SOAR product. Now, SIEM stands for Security Information and Event Management, and SOAR stands for Security Orchestration, Automation, and Response. Now, what does SIEM do? SIEM allows us to collect data in real time and allows us to analyze and correlate the data amongst several different data sets. So for example, we can collect data from your Office 365 environment, from your firewalls, from your servers, from your workstations, from a business critical application that you guys are using, and correlate all those logs together to try and figure out where the attack started. Did it transfer from one place to the other? How did it spread? So on and so forth. And then the SOAR component of this product allows the security teams to make the jump from just collecting security related data to streamlining security operations by using something called Playbooks in the Sentinel world. It's to automate many tasks, uh, to respond to these security events. So for example, if an account gets compromised, what are some of the processes or tasks that you want to go through to make sure that that account is protected again? The first task, you might want to block that account from signing in. You want to revoke their access to your environment, and you want to reset the password. All those steps can be included as part of our playbook, as part of the SOAR component of this product, to immediately reset the person's password, block their account, and revoke their access within seconds so that the damage is minimal in your environment for whatever the hacker has done within that time frame that they were in. Now, the way Azure Sentinel works, like I stated earlier, it works by correlating these security logs and signals from all sources across your applications, your infrastructure, your network, your users, whether they reside on premises or in the cloud, in the Microsoft cloud or even any other cloud platform today. And Sentinel alerts us whenever anomalies arise. And this end-to-end solution is what Security Operations Center look for. And this can be broken down to 4 main phases: the collect, detect, investigate, and respond. So the first phase is the collect phase. You want to collect logs and data from your various sources, such as Office 365, Azure, servers, workstations, firewalls, so on and so forth. Microsoft today has a very simple ingestion process, a lot of built-in connectors today that we can use, simply just out of the box, whether it's Microsoft related or third-party related. Some connectors can just be connected with a couple of buttons, and now let's say Office 365 data would start ingesting into your environment, into your Sentinel environment, while others are probably a little more complex. They may require a server for data ingestion, like a firewall, while others can rely on API calls to ingest that information. So it really depends on the data source that we want to monitor. That's what we have to figure out initially, and then figure out the way to connect it to Sentinel. Now after we've collected all those logs, they're just pure raw logs in our environment. We want to be able to detect threats just based on the logs that we're analyzing, that we're ingesting. Now you want to be able to detect security incidents with something that we call analytic rules that we create. For example, I want to generate an alert anytime someone successfully signs into my account from anywhere outside of the United States. I can easily create that rule. And with the logs that I'm ingesting into Sentinel, anytime somebody tries to sign in successfully from outside of the United States, it's going to send me an alert. And then I can automatically have a playbook run, which resets my password, blocks my account, revokes my access just before any damage is done to the environment. And there are different types of rules that we can create. Some are guided by artificial intelligence to help produce false positives. Others are created by scheduled queries where we have it run every few minutes to scan the environment and let us know if any alerts pop up. But we can get to those down the line once we get into the product. After we've collected the data and we've detected some sort of anomaly or threat in the environment, we want to investigate the alert and find the root cause in a short period of time. And the purpose of this investigation process is to understand the scope of the incident. Which entities were involved? Is it just one machine? Is it multiple machines? Is it just one user? Did it spread across the entire network? We have to find the root cause of a potential security threat, and we want to do it as quickly as possible.
Say, George.
Yeah.
Real quick, there was a question around will it detect VPN?
Yes. So we can connect your VPN, store the logs into Azure Sentinel, and then we can create rules to figure out, what IP addresses are trying to connect through your VPN. Are they coming from malicious countries like China, Russia, Bulgaria, Nigeria? And we can have it alert us anytime someone successfully signs in through your VPN from any one of those malicious countries, for example.
Thank you.
All right, no problem. Good question. All right, so once we collect the data, detect the threat, go through our investigation process, then we want to respond as quickly as possible to said threat. And we do so either manually by going through our manual investigation, figuring out what went wrong, where they came in from, and remediating it that way. Or, our preferable situation would be to use Playbooks, which would automate a specific scenario. So going back to that VPN example, if someone does successfully sign into your environment from, let's say, a Russian IP address, and you're not expecting that IP address to be connecting to your environment, we can have it automatically run a playbook that would block that IP address on your VPN, on your firewall, so that it's not allowed to come back in. Or we can even block an entire subnet or entire range of IPs, depending on the alert, depending on the threat that we're seeing. We can obviously do that in a manual fashion by going through our firewall and manually adding that IP to block it. Or we can just do it within a few seconds. If we have the playbook created beforehand, it'll scan the alert, extract all the IP addresses that are part of that alert, and automatically block them on your firewall within a few seconds. And that's why automation is the way to go once we want to respond to said threats. All right, now when we talk security, we look to take advantage of security analytics, which is the process of using data collection and analysis tools to monitor and detect threats. This can be broken down to 5 different types of data analytics. The first type is descriptive analysis, which answers the question, what happened? You want to look at comprehensive, accurate, and live real-time data. You want to monitor the status of your machines, your devices, your products, and your assets, whatever you decided to monitor initially, and you want to assess if things are going according to plan, or send me an alert if any, anomalies arise within the data that we're getting. So as long as everything is going to plan, we're not going to be getting alerts. As soon as something changes, something doesn't go according to what you're expecting, that's when we want to get alerted, and that's when we want to look into it and start the investigation and figure out what went wrong and how to fix it. The next point here is diagnostic analysis, which answers the question, why did it happen?
Hi, George.
Hi,
Sorry, there was
yeah,
another question.
sure.
Uh, if someone is using a VPN, can you show US IPs from foreign entities?
So yes, you can. So whatever source IP that is connecting to the environment, that is the main IP. Obviously, we're not saying that hackers are always originating out of China or Nigeria or Russia, but that's where the most of the attacks happen from. They can definitely happen from within the United States as well. So we just have to take a look at that raw data, what we have there, and then we can create the alerts according to our customers' use cases and according to best practices and our recommendations. Right. Thank you for that. So the second point here is diagnostic analysis, which answers the question, why did it happen? Now, in order to answer that question, we have to examine the data from multiple angles, and we have to try to understand why something is happening. Now, the goal here is to find the root cause of a problem in order to fix it or improve something. Now, that something could be a process, it could be a service, it could be a product, it could be documentation, whatever the case may be, but we have to understand what the root cause of the problem is in order for us to improve it or in order to fix it. Then we have predictive analysis, which answers the question, what could happen? Now, we want to calculate the probability that something will happen within a specific time frame based on the historical data that we have collected within the environment. And that would allow us to correlate the data that we already have with the data, that answers the question of what could happen if this event is to take place. Then we have the proactive analysis, which answers the question, can it be prevented? Now, can a threat be avoided before it happens? Now, in order to do that, it's imperative to locate and correct any potential vulnerability before they can be exploited by cyber criminals. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how large of an organization you are, if you're just a single person or 10,000 people, if there is a vulnerability, it will be used and abused against you. And finally, prescriptive analysis, which answers the question, what should be done? Now, this is the recommended set of actions as a result of a diagnosis or a prediction. Now, this breakdown of the different types of security analytics can help us understand how Azure Sentinel can answer all of those questions by having a proactive approach to security in the organization. Now, let's move over to a live demo of Azure Sentinel to show you what the product is about and what it's capable of. All right, so I'm going to be shifting over from multiple different demo tenants depending on the data that I have in front of me. I will also be monitoring the chat window just in case people are asking questions as well. All right, so this is the main overview dashboard of Azure Sentinel. We can mess around here with the time frame of the data that we want to look through, but for the sake of this demo, let's take a look at the last 24 hours. We have captured over 209,000 events, over 142 alerts, which generated 152 incidents in this specific product. All right, and we can see here the different data sources that we are ingesting. Office activity, for example, is anything you do within the Office 365 world. You read an email, you deleted an email, you deleted it from the second stage recycling bin, you modified some sort of attachment, so on and so forth. All those activities are documented within the tenant and are logged for us to be able to access and to view and use them. We have security events coming in from various products. We have threat intelligence platform that feeds us information about what IPs are malicious, what domains are malicious, what host names are malicious, and if any of those host names, IPs, or URLs, or whatever the case may be, pop up in our environment, let us know about it, because they have been considered malicious in the past, and we want to be alerted by any time of these have been witnessed in our environment. All right, and down here, right now, there's no data in this specific map, but if I was to show you another live tenant here, it depends on the information that you're ingesting. It would populate this map to show us where people are trying to access your environment from. Let's take a look at the last 7 days here, just to get a little more on this heat map. So you can see for this specific customer, people are signing into their environment from all over the world through their VPN. And if you're ingesting your VPN data, this is one area where it would populate the map, alongside with your IIS configuration, your web servers, your firewalls, and it would populate a map. The bigger the circle, the more activities happening from this specific location in the world. And that way you can figure out whether it's inbound, it's outbound, or it's both, and you can continue your investigation to figure out, hey, am I allowing people to sign in from this country over here? Or is everybody located within Canada or the United States? So that allows me to start my investigation process and hunt for these threats. All right, so moving back to this tenant. Like I stated earlier, the very first thing we have to do is identify what we want to monitor. Now, Microsoft provides us with 116 built-in connectors today that we can use. If it's not on this list, it doesn't mean that we cannot monitor it. It just means that it's not just built into the environment. We would have to custom develop the process to ingest those logs. Sometimes it's an easy process, sometimes it's a little more complex, depending on the product that we're working with. Now, if you want to take a look at Office 365 activity, for example, I want to make sure that my Office 365 connector is turned on, it's connected, and it's ingesting the information that I want it to ingest to monitor. Now, I must say that Azure Sentinel is a free product, so you don't pay to set up Azure Sentinel. The cost is based on a consumption usage. So the more logs you ingest, the more you end up paying within Sentinel. A lot of these logs are also free to ingest, while others are not free to ingest. For example, anything to do with Office 365, SharePoint logs, Exchange logs, Teams logs. SharePoint also comes with OneDrive logs. All those are free to ingest. So we can monitor your Office 365 environment practically at no additional cost. Those logs do not cost anything to ingest. If you decide to ingest, let's say, your VPN logs or your firewall logs, those do cost money, and they are billed at 3.53 Canadian dollars per gigabyte ingested. We can convert that to USD for the folks here that are in the United States. But basically, the more logs you ingest, the more you pay. And we'll go through that costing exercise once we get there. All right, so once we ingest these Office 365 logs, I want to ingest also Azure AD Logs. I want to ingest my firewalls, whatever I have in the environment that I'm looking to monitor. Once I do so, we'll be able to take a look at the logs, just pure log data. All right, so let's say I want to take a look at sign-in logs. Let's just take that. It only gives us 5 over the last 24 hours. And you can see here, these are just 5 raw logs of a single sign-in log. So that's 5 sign-in logs that have occurred within the last 24 hours. And we can take a look at the activity. So this is the user that signed in. Location was Canada. They previously authenticated using MFA. It was satisfied, multi-factor authentication. They used a browser to sign in. This is the IP address they signed in from. These are the coordinates, the state or the province, the city, the location. Everything is populated within the single log. Now, we have to make sense of these logs, because just pure logs sitting in our environment would not give us any value out of this. So a result type 0 means it was a successful sign-in. Here we have result type 50126. That means an invalid username or password was provided upon signing in. Now this person is a different user. This is Nori. Also location was Canada. Try to sign in using the IMAP protocol, which is a legacy protocol that we've disabled in our environment, from Georgetown, Ontario, Canada. And this is one of our users that tried to sign in. Now, what if I want to find out all the users that failed to sign in because of an invalid username and password? So then we take where result type equals this number, meaning that invalid username or password. Let's try to get all the ones over the past 24 hours. And there we go. You can see here, this is all the result type that we filtered. And we can take a look at the users involved in this. So you can see there's Nori, there's Karen, there's Nori again. You know, all our users are signing in either from Canada or the United States. This person should definitely not be signing in from Mexico, which is the reason why it failed. So you can tell that we are under attack from all over the world. It's just a matter of improving our protection to make sure that they cannot get in. Once we have this information, then we can make use of it. I can say anytime someone fails to sign in, let's say they've attempted 10 sign-ins within a 2-minute period, and all those sign-ins have been failed attempts or failed sign-ins. That's where our analytic rules come in. This is what would create an incident for us. So I would come here, create a scheduled query. Populate the information that I want to populate. All right, give it a severity level. Let's just say hi. Give it a tactic. Let's say this is initial access. And then I want to set my rule logic. What am I looking for? In this case, I'm looking for sign-in logs where result type equals this number, right? And I can continue throughout this process to say where the time generated was within a 10-minute window and the sign-in attempts are 10 or more within that 2-minute period. So as soon as I create that query, I can go ahead and continue the process and create it. Then anytime this event occurs, it will alert me and I can action this event. Now, some rules that we can create, for example, anytime someone gets added to an admin group, anyone that gets provided an admin role, somebody bypassed some sort of policy that you've created that you want to monitor, and then based on your use case, we can get alerted by that. Sometimes we can also get alerted if hacking tools have been witnessed in your environment. Someone is uploading, downloading, or accessing any type of hacking tool that we've included as part of this query here. And you can see anytime SQL query pops up, anytime keystrokes, key thief, all these bloodhound, all these are tools that hackers use on a regular basis, either to scan our environment, to attack our environment, or to encrypt our environment mainly. We will get alerted by it anytime these keywords are witnessed in your environment as well. So we can create as many rules as we want. We have our recommendations. We'll take use cases from our customers, and based on that, we'll create the rules in your environment so that they can alert us anytime they are populated. Now, when an alert gets triggered, it gets sent to the incidents tab here. Now, you can see that we have a whole bunch of alerts. All we have to do is, pick the one that we're going to work on, and go through our investigation process. Now, let me just show you how the investigation process looks. Now here you can see this specific alert identifies when a user account successfully logs on to an Azure application from one IP, and then 10 minutes later, failed to sign on from the same to the same app from a different IP. So maybe this person was using a VPN, which changed their IP address, and suddenly they tried to sign into to the same application from a different IP, and we got alerted by it. So if I was to view the full details of this and start off with the investigation process, so we've collected the logs from Office 365, we've detected, which is the second phase, this alert, and now we're going to go through the investigation process. If I click investigate for this specific alert, now this might be a very small one, but it's still alert nonetheless. Now this involves this entity and this IP address, right? So if this IP address has ever been witnessed in the past through another alert, we can expand this and it'll show us all the other alerts that have originated from this IP address. Same thing with the user. If this user has other alerts tied to his account, similar to this one, I can click on this and then it's going to show us all the 7 alerts that this person had generated throughout this timeline, right? So attempt to bypass something here, unfamiliar sign-in properties, unsanctioned cloud application, connection to a cloud app. And we can see those in a timeline view to figure out what happened first, what happened second, third, fourth, and so on, which would help us through our investigation process to figure out what is the source of this alert? What is the root cause that had this user generate this incident or this alert here? Are these related? Are they not related? And then we can go through our investigation process to figure it out and to mitigate this risk. All right, we can take a look at all the entities involved. So there's just one IP and one user in this case. But if this attack happened on multiple users, multiple IP addresses, they would all populate here, which would help us with our investigation. Now, how can we populate or how can we automate our response to this? Let's go to another demo tenant that I have here. So let's take a look at the Sentinel Demo user. Let's just say the Sentinel Demo user generated an alert. They're doing some sort of suspicious activities. You can see their block sign-in is set to no, meaning they're allowed to sign in. And I want this user to generate an alert, and I can action that alert automatically. So let's say login from malicious IP. All right, that is the alert tied to that specific user. Now, once these entities here populate, we'll be able to see the IP address involved in this specific incident. How do I know if this IP address is a real IP address or if it's a malicious IP address? We've created the Playbooks, which is the automation component to this product that allows us to automatically run a set of processes or a set of steps to tell us, what we want to do with a specific alert. Now, what I'm going to do with this IP address, I have here 2 playbooks. One would check this IP against virus total. The other one would check it against abused IPDB. These 2 tools here, they're cloud services that allow us to check an IP address, check a file, whether it's a malicious file, check a hash, whether it's a malicious hash, so on and so forth. So if I was to show you what this playbook looks like, it's basically step-by-step instructions as what you want this specific product to do. The first step is grab the IP address, then paste it in, what is this one? Virus totals engine, for example. Scan it, return the results, and then add the results to the comment of this incident. All this happens within seconds so that we can see exactly what happened to this specific IP. Is it malicious? Is it not? And then we can then make an educated guess or decision what we should do with this IP address. Should we block it? Should we continue using it? So on and so forth. Now, if we go back to the incident, take a look at the comments section. You see now we have 2 comments here. Let's refresh. There they are. So this is the virus total one. It scanned this IP against 84 different engines, and none of them came back malicious or suspicious. They were all considered harmless. I mean, given that this is my IP, it's definitely going to be harmless in this case. And we get a little more information from abused IPDB just to see whether, this is a public IP. It is version 4. It's from Canada, based on Rogers. It was never reported. So this, to me, is a real IP. It's not malicious. So then I can continue my investigation without having to block this IP if necessary. Another thing I can do is, let's say, for this specific incident, now my entity is not an IP address, it's the user, it's the email address, Sentinel Demo. Now, what if I've considered this to be 100% a compromised account? People are signing into this account from most malicious countries. What we can do in this case is, obviously you can run a playbook that would automatically reset the password, do that whole process for you, or it can have you send you an email with a decision to make in your email. So let me just pull that email up real quick. All right, so here it is. All right, so name, Audit Logs Demo. This alert is generated when the Sentinel Demo user performs changes to the environment. This is the time, severity, product that caught this alert, so on and so forth. Now, if I scroll all the way to the bottom, I've created these 4 options for us to choose from directly in our email. So without having to go through this investigation, if I'm 100% sure that Sentinel Demo user was compromised, I can just click on this compromised account button. I'm just going to click approve on my end here. Perfect. So it was successfully registered as compromised. Now, if we take a look at this playbook, the last step is it's going to send me an email with this person's temporary password. So it took 1 minute to run because it was waiting for a decision from us, but I just got the second email. Here it is. User Sentinel Demo at ericsugar.microsoft.com was involved as part of a security incident. As part of the remediation process, the user sign-in sessions has been revoked, account has been blocked, and the password was reset. The user will need to re-authenticate to all applications. The temporary password is this. The user will be required to reset the password upon logging in. All right, so this is the response that we got out of that playbook. And then we can even open up this playbook to see the exact steps, how long it took on each step. And you're going to see that it waited the longest when it was waiting for me to make that decision. And everything else would be in seconds, often milliseconds, so it shows as 0 in this case. And then finally here, it took us 56 seconds to decide that this was a compromised account. And then it took 3 seconds to run this compromised account switch. Revoke access, block the user, reset their password, and send me an email. Now, if I was to take a look at this account here, block sign-in is no, but let me refresh that. There it is. Now this user is blocked, their password has been reset, all their sessions has been revoked, so that if the hacker is still signed into the account, they would have to re-authenticate using the new password, and they're kicked out on the spot. So those 3 steps would mitigate against a hacker in your environment just immediately reset their password, block their account, and revoke their access. Other components to this SOAR world is you can have it block an IP in Azure AD, block an IP on your firewall, block an IP on your Exchange server, disable them on your on-prem environment, or reset their passwords on your on-prem environment. Whatever the case may be, there is one way or another for us to create a playbook that would help us respond to these threats immediately. All right, now let's move back to something called workbooks. Now, workbooks are targeted more to the C-level executives, to or maybe there's directors and managers as well, obviously, but it's mainly a visual representation of what we see in the environment. So I'm sure the executives don't want to see raw logs and all that data. They would prefer to see, am I safe? Am I under attack? Where are my concerns? So on and so forth. And that's what we try to answer using these visual representations of the code. So everything here, all these graphs have been generated by the same language, which is called Kusto Query Language, KQL, that we used to take a look at those sign-in logs earlier. All right, so if I edit this workbook and I edit these charts and graphs, that's what we are going to see. Now in this case, starting up here, I can change the time range. Let's say I want to take a look at data from the last 30 days. We've generated over 6,000 alerts over the last 30 days, 453 high, 2.1K medium, 3.42K low, and 156 informational. One of those is active, one of those is closed, but this is just a demo environment for demoing purposes, so just disregard these numbers for now. This is where we are successfully signing in from. So we've only allowed a few countries to sign into our environment unless people are traveling for work. And that's Canada, United States, Vietnam, and France. We have also people that travel to India to work from there. We have people that traveled recently to Egypt and to the Netherlands. And you can see that's why these have populated here. Otherwise, we're only going to get these 4 countries. The bigger the circle, the more sign-ins have happened in this country. Now, these are successful logins. We can also take a look at the failed login locations to see where hackers are trying to get into our environment. So over the course of the last 30 days, we've had almost 3,000 failed sign-in attempts from within Canada. That could be, a script maybe that has a hard-coded password in it that's just constantly running and failing. United States, there's 770. Brazil, 310. Russia, 92. Thailand, 66. Colombia, 62. So we definitely don't have people working out of these countries, but they are failed logins. If I did see Colombia, Thailand, Russia, Brazil on the successful sign-ins, then that's when I'm going to be worried. As long as they're blocked, they are attempting to sign in, but with our security tools, they're not allowed to sign in, or maybe because it's an incorrect password, then they're not going to be able to sign into our environment. All right, we can also take a look at the efficiency for our SOC. So how many alerts we're generating on a daily basis, how many have been assigned to a specific owner, what is the severity of these incidents. Let's just choose a smaller data set. Or actually, 90 days is not that bad. So all these alerts have been popping up on a daily basis. How many are closed, how many are new, how long it's taking us to triage the incident, how long it's taking us to close the incident. Again, disregard these numbers. This is just a demo environment, but high severity alerts, we want to triage them within the hour, medium within 2 hours, low between 3 or 4 hours, and then informational just 24 hours because it's just informational information for us to digest of what happened. And mean time to closure, how long it's taking us to close the specific incident. Our SLAs are as soon as possible. As soon as we've identified the incident, we'll go through our incident response process and close out the incident as we go along. All right. We can even take a look at our incident auditing. I want to know a specific incident, what's going on with it, who's actioning it. I'll just take one as examples, 2951. Oops. All right, so unusual addition of credentials to an OAuth app. And this gives us a little information about this incident, but obviously it's still a new incident. It hasn't been actioned, so none of these digits are going to be populated at the moment. And we can also give you some billing information, so you have an understanding of how much this product is going to cost you at the end of the month, based on the data that you are ingesting. Like I said, some data is free to ingest, while others, it's not free to ingest. So Sentinel can cost you nothing at the end of the month. You can see here in one of my demo environments, let's just say $4.60 in April, $14 in May, because I've ingested only 1 gig here, and here I have 4 gig. And now so far in June, it's almost 2 gig, and I'm paying $6 and change for this product, at least to ingest some log information, some security insights, and security logs from our other products. So the more logs you ingest, the more this will cost you. Obviously, if I was to select this customer that has hundreds of firewalls that they're ingesting, hundreds of servers, it can cost you around $2,000 per month. But this customer is one of our largest customers, which makes sense. They're ingesting close to 600 gigs of data per month, and that is the cost that Sentinel would be for all that data. All right.
Hi,
So now,
George.
hi.
Can
Yeah.
I just quickly mention here, sorry to interrupt,
Sure.
just for our audience, we are headquartered in Canada and we're using Canadian Data Center as an example, but we do serve the US market and everything here applies to US market as well.
Of course. Thank you for that, Betty. All right. Another feature that we have here is threat intelligence. This is the information that we've signed up for, and we provide our own threat intelligence based on our previous customers, based on previous attacks. What IP addresses have we witnessed that have been malicious? What host names, what domain names, what URL that have been malicious in the past? Anytime we see these properties or these values in an email, in a service, someone clicked on it, someone downloaded it, someone accessed it, someone signed in, whatever the case may be. As long as we see this information somewhere in our logs, we are going to be alerted by it, right? So these URLs have been used in the past. For example, this one, PayPal-ticketid39.com. Someone created this domain and tried to phish for maybe PayPal credentials or PayPal access to steal money. But if this specific URL is ever evident in any of our customers' environments, we will be alerted by it so that we can action it and follow the proper process. All right, so we have signed up for a lot of these services. So far, we have around 223,000 indicators ranging between IP addresses, host names, URLs, domains, and anytime they pop up, we get alerted by it as well. All right, I just want to touch on one final thing here before we move over to questions. This touches base on something called Logs Analytics Workspace. So this is the workspace that has to be created in order for Sentinel to ingest all those logs in. All right, so again, I can come up with the with the US number, but as a Canadian currency so far, it's $3.53 per gigabyte to ingest logs into Log Analytics Workspace. And if you want to retain that data beyond 90 days, then you pay 15 cents per gigabyte retained. So you get 3 months worth of free logs to retain in your environment. Let's say you ever want to go back 3 months and take a look at what someone did, that information will be available for you. If you need, 4 months worth of logs, you're going to get the first 3 for free, and then the 4th month you will have to pay 15 cents Canadian per gigabyte stored in this Log Analytics Workspace. Now, what if you have a budget that you want to meet? You can't surpass that budget no matter what. Then we can set a daily cap and say, I only want to spend $3.53 Canadian per gigabyte per day, and that's it. Now, if I choose this option, obviously once the gigabyte per day, or once that 1 gig reaches 1 gig, all the other security data is going to be eliminated from being ingested. So we could be losing some valuable data there. Maybe there's a security incident that would pop up, but this would meet your budget requirements in setting a daily cap of how much data you want to ingest. All right. Also, we can set data retention for up to 2 years if we need to. You get the first 90 days for free. If you have some sort of legal requirement or compliance requirement, whatever the case may be, we can set this to up to 2 years. If you need this more than 2 years, then there are 2 or 3 other ways that we can export this data into a different log storage for you to retain either indefinitely or maybe 7 years, 8 years, 10 years, depending on the rules and regulations that you have to abide by. And the more data you ingest, the higher probability you're going to get a discount. So if you ingest more than 100 gigs per day, then you get a 15% discount on your total storage costs. If you ingest over 5,000 gigs per day, you get a 30% discount. So it really depends on the organization and the customer. What we can do in this case as part of this initiative is go through this process with you and figure out how much things are going to cost you if you were to run Sentinel, and we'll have an estimate for you to make that decision. All right, I think I have one final slide here, or 2 slides. So we have an offering called Alarm Guardian. You can think about it as getting security for your home, but instead of protecting your home, we'll be protecting your IT environment, such as your Office 365, your Azure, servers, workstations, firewalls, so on and so forth. So by signing up for Alarm Guardian, ProServe IT will be able to keep an eye on your environment from security risks 24/7. Now, as an offer for nonprofit organizations, we will set up Azure Sentinel in your environment for free to monitor Office 365 and Azure Active Directory. And this offer is valid until July 15th of this year. So as long as you reach out to us before July 15th, we will deploy Azure Sentinel in your environment free of charge. Now, one thing I want you to keep in mind is that anybody could be a victim of cybercrime. It's a matter of when they get hit and not if they get hit. And we're seeing a lot of both targeted and non-targeted attacks today. So like I said, it doesn't matter what your business is, how many employees you have. If you have an exposed vulnerability, it will be used and abused. Now, this message is for all organizations, especially, and a special focus on nonprofit organizations. Nonprofit organizations are prime targets since hackers already know that they have funds that come in, maybe through donations, government grants, different methods. They also know that nonprofit organizations don't usually have the proper budget to invest in security and securing their assets. One other major reason why hackers target nonprofit organizations is that if they gain access to that nonprofit org, they can lead their way into a larger affiliated for-profit organization that can be extorted for more money. So I hope I raised some awareness here today about security, and in particular for the nonprofit sector. Remember, security doesn't sleep, so you have to make sure you're protected 24/7 by 365. Now, depending on how complex your environment is, we have multiple packages that could fit your need. So basically, we have the Protect, Assure, and Control package. Each one offers a 24/7 monitoring and response platform. The only one that would allow us to help you recover, maybe all your systems are down and you need recovery, that would be the Control package. But once we start this conversation, we'll figure out where you fit and provide you with our recommendations on that as well. And that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Anybody have any questions? Everybody feel pretty good about what was covered today? Again, George mentioned, feel free to reach out to the ProServe IT team as a follow-up. Again, guys, I'm always happy to follow up with you guys in regards to any questions. I work very closely with the ProServe IT team and am happy to get you guys aligned. Looks like we have a question here. Can you build a connector as long as there's an API?
More or less, yes. If we can connect to a specific product using an API call or a query, then most likely, yes, we can ingest logs there. It just depends on what that API covers. As long as it fits in a specific format that we're looking for, then we can, use that API to connect to that service, pull the logs that we want, have it be sent to Sentinel, and then from there we can correlate those logs and detect any threats based on the logs that we ingest.
Thank you, George.
No problem.
Looks like we might have another question being typed up in the chat window there. Follow-up demos for our executives. So Stephen, I guess that's something that we can definitely work with you on doing. I think that's probably something that we would look to do kind of more on an individual basis. So if you'd like, feel free to shoot me an email, and I can bring the appropriate people from ProServe IT in and try to get that lined up for you. Perfect. Still have a couple minutes, guys. Anybody else, any questions? Well, if there's no other questions, guys, we'll go ahead and call it a day. I do want to say thank you very much to George and the rest of the ProServe IT team. Again, I think this is very helpful, and appreciate that you dedicated time just to customers that align to me here at Microsoft. So again, thank you very much. Anybody who has any further questions, any sort of follow-up that's wanted, again, please feel free to reach out to ProServe IT directly or reach out to me, and I'm happy to get you guys aligned. So thank you. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye now.
Thanks for your time, everyone. Take care.